Welcome to Illuminations Radio, here to inspire you to go deep, deeper into your roots, to go back into your true self. As you seek within, you will discover real health, joy, and wealth. As you travel through space-time of your own heart-mind, you will come to recognize you, and only you as master, knowing that deep within your soul lies every attained goal. Yes, everything you've been after. Greetings, this is Tamara Westwood, your host. We all know what the problems are, but here at Illuminations Radio, together we seek solutions in every aspect of life, from health and spirituality to relationships and finance, and everything in between, with a variety of guests who are making a difference and shining examples in our collective adventure called life. Recording live on Blog Talk Radio from Seattle, Washington. But wherever you are in the world, join us live by logging into blogtalkradio.com/illuminations. Join the chat room or call 347-838-9577 to join in the conversation. Ask a question or just say hello. Or listen 24/7 by subscribing to the free podcast at the iTunes Store. Search iTunes Podcasts for Illuminations, healthy food for the mind, body, and soul. Welcome back for part 2 of Healing with Cannabis or Just Getting High with Dr. Falice.
Well, that is excellent. Now, there's a certain component of the cannabis plant. Everybody's familiar with THC, and certainly that's the one that people tend to get the high with. But you work with one, the CBDs. Could you please explain the difference between the two and how the CBDs work?
Absolutely, and if that's one thing that the listeners get out of the talk today, it would be the concept of CBD as a different chemical. So the cannabis plant is like a natural pharmacologic factory, and one of the molecules that it produces is THC, and THC is what gives the classic head high for cannabis, and THC is also associated with the majority of the side effects of cannabis. Some of the side effects much more minor than the opiate medications, but some of the side effects of THC are short-term memory loss, anxiety, irritability, sleeplessness, and in certain rare populations can predispose people who have a susceptibility to mental illness, can actually push them further towards that spectrum. Now, that's THC alone. What happens when we have the whole plant? The whole plant contains more than just one molecule. And in the genetic kind of database of the plant has the ability to make other molecules that actually have much better health benefits for most patients than THC. THC is useful for cancer patients with nausea and vomiting who are having trouble eating. But it is not the best molecule for pain. So for patients who are taking cannabis for their pain, they don't necessarily want a lot of THC in their medicine. In fact, for most of my patients, the preference is less THC and not more. And as you said, higher concentrations of the molecule CBD. CBD stands for cannabidiol. I encourage the listeners to Google that, CBD, Charlie Brown David. CBD is the best pain-relieving molecule in the plant, and what's interesting about it is, it does not give a head high. So it provides a relief for pain without the associated head high that a lot of the patients are trying to avoid. The other thing that it does that's very interesting is that it opposes the negative side effects of THC. So patients who are using cannabis with the CBD molecule in it, they get better pain relief, but they don't have the short-term memory issues that are associated with higher THC strains. And also CBD has many other benefits in addition to being a pain reliever. It's an anti-inflammatory, and it's also an immune modulator, so it's very good for patients with autoimmune disease, such as rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or multiple sclerosis that have pain in conjunction with their disease. The CBD molecule present in the plant makes it a much better medicine. There's a lot to say on this topic. Do you have any questions about what I've discussed with it so far?
Oh, well, certainly. A lot of people who actually grow cannabis aren't really clear on how to get that. Is that within a certain species? Is there a certain length that the plant is allowed to mature? Can you fill us in on some of that?
Yes, that's a great question. How to get CBDs? A little bit of background is since the mid to early 60s, cannabis has been bred as a street drug, so that its natural genetic composition has been altered through time through selective breeding. Cannabis growers from the 60s have wanted a plant that gets people high. And so just like humans have bred dogs to do what we want them to do, for example, huskies pull sleds, shepherds are good with herding animals, humans have bred the plants to do what we want it to do. And in the early phases of cannabis breeding, the main impulse was let's collectively try to develop strains that get people high and use it as a street drug. So as a result, a lot of CBD-containing genetics have been bred out of the plant. So then as your question, as you asked, how do we get CBDs? And there are really a few ways to do that. One is through laboratory testing. And in Washington State and in other states where cannabis is legal, there are testing companies. And the fees to test the cannabis have really become very affordable. They're in about the $40 range for a single batch now to test the cannabis. So if you are a grower and you have, if you're a patient in Washington, you're legally able to grow, you can have your plants tested to see if they have the medicine in it. But there's an easier way, and that way is that if you know of the genetics of the plant, for example, if you know that a certain plant is a CBD-producing plant, all of the clones of that plant are also going to make CBDs. So that although laboratory testing is important and I think the gold standard, there are other ways that patients and growers can be assured that the plant is a CBD producer. And patients will know right away also. They will notice they get a much better pain response from the cannabis that has CBD in it versus another type of cannabis that is strictly more of a THC-containing plant. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you for that. It looks like we have a caller online that might have a question. Let's welcome our caller on. Yes, hello, caller, in the 425. Did you have a question for Dr. J?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes.
Thank you so much for calling. Go right ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Caller?
I've heard before that cannabis is like the world's dangerous drug, and I was wondering, do you know why they might say that, or what causes it to be the most dangerous drug in the world?
Sure. Well, a lot of what happened, if you look at the history of cannabis in the late 30s, is there was a move to push and make the drug illegal. But cannabis is not a dangerous drug, meaning it is in and of itself not a gateway drug. It does not lead to other use of other more dangerous drugs, for example. And the U.S. government has about every decade or so established commissions to study the safety of the plant. And starting back in the 1940s with the LaGuardia Commission, which found that there not only was there no dangerous effect of the plant, so to speak, but that it actually was a wonderful therapeutic substance. And these studies have been repeated just about every decade sponsored by the U.S. government. The most recent one by the Institute of Medicine. Again, every single study is, without a shadow of a doubt, demonstrating not only the effectiveness of the cannabis, but the safety as well. So there is a lot of misinformation. The danger with cannabis comes from social pressure, not the actual chemical constituencies of the plant. So in the past, before in states where cannabis is not legal as a medicine, people have to go buy their marijuana on the street. And a lot of the times the people who are selling the cannabis, for example, are also dealing in more dangerous products. So there is a predisposition for people using cannabis as a street drug to be exposed to some of the more dangerous elements, such as cocaine and heroin, et cetera. But the actual chemical constituency of the plant, there's not a single molecule in cannabis that makes people want to use more of another substance. And there are also no toxic effects of cannabis. So, for example, the lethal dose of smoking cannabis is 15 pounds of cannabis smoked in 15 minutes. And it's not the actual THC that causes the death, but it's the carbon monoxide from the smoke inhalation that is the lethal factor.
15 pounds?
What's that? 15 pounds of cannabis. 15 in 15 minutes. 15 in 15 minutes. It literally can't be done. It's not something that can be done. So if you look at the propaganda that came out against cannabis in the late 30s, which is classically portrayed in, for example, the movie Reefer Madness. What they were telling people in the 30s was, if you smoke cannabis, you're going to go home and murder your family and then do all these terrible things. And that's obviously not what happens when people smoke cannabis. But there is quite a propaganda campaign because I can tell you with beyond the shadow of a doubt that almost all of my patients who make a switch to cannabis use less of their regularly prescribed pain medication. And so therefore I think that what cannabis offers is it offers a solution to patients, but it offers pharmaceutical manufacturers a potential loss of their market share in a very large growing segment of our population which needs pain relief at this time.
I don't know if I can say this or if this is a good thing to say, but I know that, I use cannabis medically and, I have an ailment, but also something that I don't, tell people about is that, I guess I used to be, or could say I was, classified as an alcoholic, and have gone to treatment before and actually had counselors say, when I told them that cannabis helps me not drink, and, they told me that, that's like switching drugs, but, when I look at it, for me, and when I look at certain things, and when people drink, or like the people that drove the wrong way on the freeway, or all the people that die from drinking, it doesn't seem to, make sense for it not to be, at least for people that are alcoholics to know of it and maybe know that, it could actually, help them. You bring up an important point, and I didn't get your name. What is your name? My name's Tom.
Tom, you bring up an important point, and the important thing with patients who are in addiction and recovery programs is an awareness of their triggers. So for some alcoholics, for example, cannabis could potentially be a trigger, and that would not be advisable for them. But for many alcoholics, cannabis actually helps relieve the withdrawal symptoms, which can be quite serious in a lot of the alcoholics. Science also shows that cannabis reduces the use of opiate medication in patients who are prescribed the opiates. So cannabis is really more of an exit drug than an entry drug, and that is, I think, very well established in across all drug spectrums with the exception of tobacco. cannabis can be an entry drug for tobacco, and the main reason for that is the use of blunts or European style, where people do mix in a little bit of tobacco with their cannabis. Other than that, what the studies show is that cannabis actually will help patients with their alcohol withdrawal symptoms, will help patients with cocaine withdrawal, it helps patients with opiate withdrawal symptoms. And honestly, also, if we talk economics, addiction experts are a big part of their business is cannabis treatment. So there is, if you look at the financial piece of it, there is a little bit of a skew there. Of all the major medical groups, many of which, including the AMA, the largest medical association, have come out in favor of cannabis as a medicine. But the addiction specialists are still, a lot of them, saying, no, we don't like it. So I think a part of that, Tom, is social. There is a social connection, again, through the dealer on the street, where cannabis can introduce people to other more dangerous medications. But it's not a medical problem. It's more of a cultural problem.
Right.
And that's an excellent question. Yes, you're very welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom, for calling in. Those were excellent questions.